Forkast.News is your gateway to all things blockchain. We do the deep dive and the due diligence on the blockchain projects and platforms that matter, because we aim to be the most reliable source of intellectual discourse and insight that inform, educate, and bridge the gap between the blockchain industry and the mainstream. One of the interesting initiatives in China is this cooperation between industries and governments, and that is really being reflected right now in Hangzhou by the Zhejiang province in coordination and collaboration with Wanxiang Industries. Vincent Wang is the Chief Innovation Officer at Wanxiang Industries Holdings, and you're cooperating with Hangzhou in something called a smart city and using blockchain innovation. It's called ANOVA City. Tell us more about this.
ANOVA City is a major, very ambitious mega project along the river in Hangzhou. Hangzhou, for those of you who have visited, it's a beautiful, one of the most beautiful cities in China. It actually has shares a common feature with Shanghai. Shanghai is divided up into two parts, old and new, by a river, Huangpu River. So right now we're sitting in Pudong. Pudong represents the growth area of Shanghai, has been representing that for the last 20 years at least. And Hangzhou is also a city of old and new, divided up by a river called Qiantang River. And ANOVA City is right on the river bank on the Pudong side of Hangzhou City, let's put it that way. And this is where most of the growth will be. And a matter of fact, that ANOVA City project is right at the heart of Hangzhou's inner ring that defines the city proper. And we see ANOVA City as a opportunity on multiple dimensions. Number one, this is a mega city project that allows us to experiment a new way to build a city adjacent to industrial activities with high environmental standards. Secondly, it gives us the testing ground for a new way to look at, for a more distributed way rather than the top-down design way to look at a smart city. And thirdly, that's the most exciting part, I keep the best for last, that is, this is going to be the first scaled urban project that is whose data infrastructure runs entirely on blockchain.
What does that even mean?
Traditionally, when you say a smart city, so it's based on, of course, smart city is based on cloud. It has certain set of features, for example, facial recognition, smart transportation, but all these are belong to the data collected from different applications. They belong to different data silos. What blockchain aims to do is, number one, as this is discussed to some detail by Dr. Xiao, I just want to repeat, Platon allows the privacy and performance to be addressed at the same time. So when you, in the city of the future, when you do smart driving, when you do smart renewable energy, when you want to provide better services to the residents and visitors alike, you need efficiency. You cannot. You must have real time. Otherwise, if you are your data is protected by your data infrastructure when you drive, when your car is interacting with the infrastructure. If there's a latency, if the time delay of a few milliseconds,
yes,
that could be fatal.
Yes.
So Platon offered the best opportunity to marriage confidentiality, privacy protection with performance. So, but this needs to be designed in from the very beginning. That the data fabric, when a true privacy, a true fulfillment of privacy protection is where users and administrators don't need to even think about it. It's so integrated into the data fabric. That's the first thing we want to do. Secondly, we want to tap the synergy of different systems, different application systems, different economic models, different economic entities. I will give an example later on if we have time. So it's important. You can take a existing city that where a data infrastructure is already in place and try to add on a layer of blockchain or provide some branching out with blockchain for a particular application. But that would be the benefit will be limited because you still leave the data silos of different applications, different services, different solutions separate. With a new city, now when you design the data infrastructure from scratch, what you can do is you design the data fabric to make it immensely scalable, distributed. So all the data, there won't be any data silo. The data domain is protected, but they're also connected.
Privacy is a huge issue, especially when it comes to emerging technologies. How can I be assured that my information is private to me, can't be utilized against me or commoditized against my interest, which we're actually seeing now in very many aspects of technology application, to the criticism of companies and all the way up to governments. How do you as a company reassure that privacy is first and foremost going to be protected for people to engage more wholeheartedly in the technology ecosystem and infrastructure? How do you get past that perception where privacy truly is privacy? How do you reassure people about that?
With distributed technologies, such as including blockchain, but also including encrypted computing. I'll explain why. Right now, let's look at the problem we're facing now. The problem we're facing now is actually a natural consequence of us surrendering the data sovereignty to a proxy, to a large company, the Googles of the world, the Facebook of the world, for benefits. And so we get services. If we do not surrender these data, we don't get services. It's not necessarily that there's a dark design somewhere in the universe that they want to take the data sovereignty away from us, but that's the way it is. This is the only way, because all the data service is vertical. It follow a kind of a pyramid structure. So there got to be the individual user data are integrated on the upper level, then integrated on the upper level, and then integrated on the upper level. And solutions and services are running on those data. And that's the only way your data can be accessed. That is by surrendering your data out to be stored in a data infrastructure, in a database, somewhere in the cloud.
Is this a concern of not only people in China, but obviously around the world? But what is the concern here in China when it comes to privacy?
Privacy, I think the privacy concern is fairly universal. Everywhere, like everywhere else, including the U.S., Chinese consumers do not want to have their data abused by unknown third parties. And so that invisibility of where your data is going is a great concern. Now, what we want to do differently with what I referred to earlier as the data infrastructure, is the blockchain-enabled data infrastructure is twofold. One, we would not ask you, we will create a data network that does not allow the user to surrender the data. Your data can be accessed, but you do not surrender it. Your data will not be copied and replicated and stored somewhere else. So you still have your data. Let's say that it's stored in a little purse of yours, digital purse of yours. Other people, if they want to have a trade with you, they want to have access to your data so they can help you better, they need to get your consent. That consent doesn't mean that you actually have to press a button. It could be a smart contract that you initiated, you signed with a third party. So you don't need to do that manually every time. But once you grant your consent, your data will be accessed to give you service, but only accessed, because your data is not going anywhere.
Right, but not accessed, but not owned.
Not owned. They cannot see the raw data. Nobody can see the raw data except for you. And you can choose not to see the raw data either. So this way, you can cut off, whenever there's a violation or infringement, you can cut that relationship off overnight, and there's no more consequence. That assures that your data, there's no data lost. There's only a denial of data access, grant or denial of data access. That's the first thing we want to do. So blockchain has, I don't want to have a too involved discussion here, but blockchain has a nice way to manage and secure data on a distributed network so that you can, as far as the personal data is concerned, you can eat a cake and have it. Secondly, encrypted computing. So we allow the computing to be conducted, analysis to be conducted over encrypted data. So again, this goes to the fact that nobody will see your raw data. Nobody will replicate your raw data. Even if they try to, that doesn't make any sense, because once your data stored there, encrypted, is taken somewhere else, it just won't be read anymore. So this is where both these two values, the distributed, the data securing on the blockchain network and the encrypted computing, those are two of the primary, very important value propositions by Platon.
How competitive is the blockchain space in China right now?
Competitive, from the technology point of view, a narrow competition is not necessarily the way to go. But viability-wise, we see a vibrant range of options for app developers and users. So I think that is a sign of great health. On the other hand, there is both the industries and the users are calling for meaningful aggregation, so that you have a common platform to establish a great value system on. And so I think this is eventually there will be convergence on a public chain and with regard to a number of public chains. And we have reason to believe that with its merits, Platon will be one of the major infrastructure out there.
As you build these initiatives, it's important to tap blockchain talent. It's important to tap the new graduates in computer engineering, developers and coders and the like. Does that talent exist at a level that competes globally here in China?
I believe so. I think here we can draw a parallel with artificial intelligence. We see great availability of talents here. Now, with the blockchain, as a matter of fact, I believe that going forward, in order to really realize the full potential of blockchain, in the future, we may not have blockchain developers. We will have individual application developers who know their blockchain. Just like today, you don't have so many internet developers anymore, because the technical logic of internet is already absorbed into different application domains. So of course everyone is doing internet when they design their own code for their own solutions for their own industries. I think that will happen to blockchain in the future. Here, as a matter of fact, I would argue that China probably has an advantage, benefiting from the fact that China is one of the first major countries that embrace blockchain, and blockchain becomes a entry into the Chinese lexicon as early as 2015. So when your grandmas also know what blockchain is, that's saying something. So that advantage is that we have new graduates who, even in college, already know what blockchain is. They may not. Some of them are very well trained in blockchain technology already. That will come in handy when they whatever IT-related work they choose to do later on. But even those who do not have deep training, but they at least that awareness will keep blockchain as a viable option for innovation later on in their career. So I think there is a great advantage.
When you look across industries in China, do you feel like some industries are more knowledgeable about blockchain than others?
I think it's It could be. It's true in for two reasons. One is there are some pre-perceived low-hanging fruits for blockchain application.
Yes.
People inevitably speculate on what will be the low-hanging fruits for blockchain. And for example, people believe that financial sector, now people are more focused on supply chain finance. Sure, people working in supply chain finance are probably more aware and become more knowledgeable about blockchain. The other area, and I think is happening, and I think it will be picking up momentum, is where blockchain, you would not naturally think of as a blockchain domain, but it offers a way, great potential to rethink the technical logic of the IT technology that support that industry. For example, provenance, food provenance. In China over the years, a number of food scare happened. And people very quickly, even though blockchain was not envisioned to be a food technology, but people very quickly realized that it has great application. But so far, the applications are done in a way that is outside in. But as more and more people in those industries become aware, less knowledgeable but aware of the blockchain, they will be incentivized to take blockchain to disrupt the existing data order of the food industry. And then they will become more knowledgeable, and that's where the true revolution will happen, when the value proposition and enthusiasm and deep knowledge all come together.
What do you think the perception of blockchain is right now in terms of corporate enterprise in China? And not only the understanding of blockchain technology, but also working with it and actively thinking about using it in their industries. What do you think the percentage is in terms of that happening right now? Companies that are thinking about applying or already implementing blockchain.
My guess would be about 15 to 20%. That's the overall, it's a very rough hue overall estimate, but I think that number is coming up pretty dramatically. And as a matter of fact, both at Platon and at Wanxiang ANOVA City and at Wanxiang Blockchain Company, we're doing everything we can to further promote those awareness. And so next time we talk, maybe that number, hopefully that number will be 35%.
35% is still big enough of a chunk to scale blockchain and show the outcome of blockchain efficiencies. But you've got enormous runway of blockchain opportunities. We're not even in saturation or maturation stage yet. How quickly do you think China's going to get there versus other nations around the world?
I think in a number of areas, China will get there before other nations. This is related to an insight Dr. Xiao shared earlier about the lack of incumbents in, say, supply chain finance. And this is why blockchain blooms in supply chain finance. I think in China, in spite of the decades of economic development, amazing economic development, there are still certain areas, the development for an economy that grows so fast, inevitably there will be uneven development. So I would think that there are certain sectors that are still do not have major incumbents like the precise US or EU counterparts. But the needs, as China is in the transition from a manufacturing investment-driven economy to consumption-driven economy, there will be all these lackings will be revealed, and they will be viewed as great opportunities. And these are opportunities that blockchain, I'm sure, will capture. So I think the reason China will pick up the momentum, maybe in a number of areas ahead of other nations, is not necessarily because we're necessarily smarter than other people. It's just that we have the right combination of lack of just about right. That there's some development. The development is not quite complete, so there are still gaps that innovation can quickly fill. So I just want to add, we believe that the truly great blockchain company will be industry company, enterprise software providers who, instead of branding themselves as a blockchain company, they take blockchain, they absorb the logic of blockchain, so they reinvent the solution, the mainstream solution of their industry. They may be the SAP of the future, they may be the LinkedIn of the future, they may be the IBM of the future.
Dare I say, the forecast of the future.
The forecast is future.
We are forecasting the future. I think ultimately, when you take a look at what's happening in Asia, and I will expand beyond China, is that there is really an enormous potential for growth, exactly as you said. It is not a saturated market, it is not a mature market, it is a developing market, and in the development of it comes this opportunity where technology can leapfrog, and not only leapfrog, but really create new industries where none have existed before. And so lack of incumbents in the space, because the space has not even yet been defined until right now, and may not yet be defined until technology defines it. Back to ANOVA City. What are the things that you were working on that look so different from anything that we have seen in infrastructure today, in government today, in corporate structure today? Give me your top 3 highlights of something that you're working on there that we've never seen before.
First of all, I want to sincerely compliment on the insight that you just shared with us. I want to show my appreciation of that insight. That you said that maybe some of the industries are not even defined yet. Maybe there's a way to use the blockchain will redefine new boundaries of what a particular industry actually means. I think that's a great insight. I would apply that insight onto the smart city that we're building. So if you look at smart city today, let's take renewable energy for example. Over here, you have different players. You have the individual users, household users, and you have the grid operator, and you have the sometimes the gated community operator have a stake in that as well. And you have energy exchanges. And so now how do you define renewable energy? Basically, there are all these different silos of different segments. So it's not quite like a pyramid, but data is going everywhere willy-nilly, and there's not a very clean way to organize it. And when that happens, the challenge often is there's no good business model, because it's just too confusing. There's no clear who's paying whom for what. Blockchain offers a great organizing principle. So down the road, you may see that the boundary between these different players are blurred. They're all connected through a token layer. So people trade with each other on any number of things. They incentivize each other's economic involvement in different ways. And they find relevance where there is none. For example, you take your car home, you have different ways to get your car battery replenished. For example, your residential community may offer a service to physically do that for you, or you can. Someone will. With autonomous driving, it's easier. But before autonomous driving, someone will just come on a trusted blockchain network, take your car, service it, and then return it to where it is. And the gate permission will be granted, the parking space permission will be granted, and but you wouldn't know. You don't need to know. Everything is running on it's like a lubrication fluid running on the level of a token, and you see the settlement, you see the token deduction or grant onto your household. That's all you need to do. You do not. All you need to do is provide the right infrastructure. You have the right solar panel. You invest in the energy storage unit. You make the investment, then done. And someone will take your asset as a resource, and compensate you fairly and seamlessly.
So this is really a redefinition of social economic relationships. Because right now, if I trust you, or I trust your brand, or I trust your reputation, I trust your reviews, I do my due diligence, I do my research. Until that point happens that I establish trust with you, then I decide to engage in a business relationship with you. That's really how the world currently exists, right? We do business with the companies, the brands, the people that we trust. Once those relationships falter, we then go to another company that hopefully can maintain our trust, ergo consumer loyalty. But you're talking about a completely different system. What it seems like you're talking about is that the system itself will create that layer of trust so that you don't have to vet every single person who's participating in that system, because that system establishes that trust and demands and commands that trust from those who are servicing that system.
Absolutely, you get it exactly right. And the system is acting as everybody's proxy. And so you do not, if you make your solar panel available to a third party or a fourth party, would that party be your client or your customer? It's not, or your solution provider. It's not clear, because they're getting something already from servicing you. So this is like quantum theory. Quantum theory is that when you go to a sufficient minuscule level, energy and mass are confused. So they're converged together. And likewise, with when the service, when energy becomes truly distributed, who's the provider, who's the benefactor, who's the beneficiary, who needs to be compensated for what is also blurred. In its place is a system, as you said, that handles all these trading based on secured by blockchain, and execution is the quality of the execution is ensured by artificial intelligence on the edge, and monitored probably by the cloud or by additional infrastructure that again are based on these two basic building blocks, AI and blockchain.
I think for the first time in many of these conversations, I truly see a forecast to what a future could look like. And it sounds like it's being tested right now in Hangzhou. So thank you so much for sharing that, and I can't wait to see more.
And thank you very much. You have provided me with at least 2 great insights. Thank you so much.
I'm glad. Very, very good reciprocation. Thank you so much. Thank you, Vincent.